All right, don't say anything that's going to embarrass me, okay?
I'll do my best.
We're live. Hey, what's up, Mattie? How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. What's going on, everyone? We're back here with the WODprep podcast. I have the Mattie Rogers as I think the queen of weightlifting, in my opinion, at least American weightlifting. And so I'm super excited to have you on and to chat a little bit. And yeah, thanks again. Where are you currently in this very pink happening room?
This is Carlos's office studio extraordinaire,
Cool.
aka my like rental podcast room or
Rental
anything that
podcast room.
involves
Did he
like
did he
camera.
charge you? Did he
Yeah,
charge you for it?
charge me.
Who's Carlos?
Carlos is my wonderful boyfriend
Awesome. Cool.
here in Pensacola.
Yep. So you've been in Pensacola for a year now.
Yep, next month will be a year.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
How do you like it?
I love it. It's very different than Orlando, where I
Yeah,
was. Much slower pace, which I definitely appreciate.
it's so nice. We grew up like not even like 10 minutes from each other. I don't know if you realize that. Like I grew up in Ocoee.
I know Coe very well.
Yep. And so you grew up in Wekiva, right?
Yep, went to Wekiva High School.
Right. Is Wekiva a city? It's not a city though, is it? Do you guys have like a city address? So you technically would be like
It would be a Popka.
Apopka. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was like yeah. Um okay, cool. Um and so you went to Wekiva. How'd you go there all 4 years? Then you went to UCF, right?
I went there for 2 years. In my junior and senior year, I went to a state college because I did dual enrollment. So I didn't go to high school at all for junior, senior year. I was full time college student.
Gotcha. And so did you do that for weightlifting or just because you were super, super smart?
I wasn't a weightlifter yet at that point, actually. I was still a cheerleader, but mostly I was trying to find ways to work more
Mm-hmm.
hours because I was living on my own at 17. So I was in CrossFit at that point though. So I was working in a CrossFit gym, working in a gymnastics gym, and then going to school. Just kind of basically like college living, just 2 years earlier.
That sounds awesome. It sounds awesome, but I want to ask questions of why it probably I'm assuming it wasn't that great. So why were you living on your own at 17?
Um, my home life was not great. I have a single mom, and I not like no shade or blame to her. She did her best, but it just wasn't a place to thrive in.
Sure.
And I think I knew that. And I've always been like very independent, very on my own, and very okay with that. So I was like, why am I like more or less suffering here when I could just go do it by myself and be better off? And I was, and it was fine. It was hard, obviously. Like you're freshly
Sure.
17, and I had an apartment. I had like all of the bills and like life things that you're like, I don't know what this is. Like, how do I pay a bill?
Right.
But you have to figure it out anyway. So I just figured it out a couple years earlier. Um, and I don't regret it at all. I think it was a great decision. I think it helped me learn a lot sooner. So I was very prepared for like real adult life. It's just hard.
I feel like that was pretty close to real adult life at 17 living on your own. No?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get much more adult than that. I
No.
think the next step is kids.
Mhm.
And I mean, and so there's pretty much it. If you're on your own and you don't have any financial support, I feel like you were living it. Well, that's pretty wild. Something that I didn't know about you actually. Uh, so I was listening to Constantly Varied,
Mhm.
varied, not random. That's what it is. Varied, not.
Sorry, Carlos's light just fell.
All right, are we good?
I'm just gonna set it down.
Yeah, cool. It's all right. Your tech person will come back in here in a second. And you moved back in though at some point, correct?
Yes, when I was probably 19-ish,
Mm-hmm.
around when I had made my first international teams, was starting to like be more serious about weightlifting.
Mm-hmm.
I basically came home from one of the events and I was like, okay, if I want to do this, like I need to be able to dedicate real time to training. Like I need to be
Sure.
training twice a day. I need to do whatever. So basically made amends with my mom so I could come home and train, or come home and live and train more, work less. And that was, I think, up to about the 2016 Olympic trials.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that had finished, it's like, okay, I'll go be adult again.
Yeah. Okay. I do want to talk about the 2016 year. I know it's probably like a point of contention and something like, but I was like new into the weightlifting world. We'll get to that in a second, but there was a lot of drama, right? And like a lot of subjective reasoning of why maybe you didn't get chosen and stuff. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. We'll get there. We'll get there in a second.
Okay.
We'll double back. So how old are you?
I'm 29.
29. And so this was 10 years ago. So it's 2024. Okay. So at 19, so 2012 is when you moved out, correct? And you were on your own
Yeah.
doing the thing. And so then you moved back in 2014 at 19-ish to prep for like the Olympic run, that quad run, right?
That was probably closer to 2015 because 2014 was my first year making any teams at all, like the junior worlds, junior Pan Ams. And then 2015 was the first time I started making like senior teams, which are the ones that qualify you for the Olympics.
Got it. And so talk to me about like being a junior, like a junior lifter. I mean, you were only in the sport for like, you could count on a couple fingers, right? Like how many months, maybe just like at a year, like, and you were making junior world team. What is that like? Were you just genetically designed for this? Was it a lot of hard work? Did it come really easy? You know, talk to me about that. Like what does that process look like before you made the bid or the thought to push for the Olympic team, right? Like what does those first couple years look like?
I wouldn't say I was naturally very good at it. Like I'm naturally athletic. I'm naturally an athlete. Thanks, mom and dad. But like weightlifting was not something that came easy. Like I'm a very long individual. I wouldn't say I'm built. Yeah, I'm very lengthy. And most like natural good weightlifters are the more like short, squatty, like meatball-esque people. So I had a really hard time with anything like raw strength related, but like the technical stuff, like the quicker, powerful stuff, like that was for sure, that came a little bit easier. But I don't know. I think like just with my background being a gymnast too, like not being good was kind of made it like a challenge. I was like, all right, like how do we figure this out? And I like really enjoyed that process of going from like being really bad to like trying to get better. So I do think like majority of it is credited to just like working really hard and being more or less a perfectionist. But also times were very different in weightlifting for women, especially then. The pool of athletes was much smaller. The talent was not even nearly the same. I mean, not to discredit anything that like myself or anyone else did in that time, but it was very, very different. Like I vividly remember doing, I think it was like a 91 kilo snatch, and it was a junior American record, which now it's like, I mean, it's 120. So just different.
Yeah, that's wild. And so super crazy. And so just to be clear, like, you know that you can like internally take a lot of credit for that huge change, right? Like I think you're the biggest face of like the change of really weightlifting in general, right? Like you pioneered the transition from CrossFit to weightlifting, right? And then so many people fell behind you, especially the females, right? And you know, maybe CrossFit takes like the most bit of like putting barbells in females' hands, right? I don't think anyone, if you can hate on CrossFit as much as you want, but no one can argue that it's done that better than anything ever in the history of fitness. But you definitely made that jump, and very successfully, obviously. And I think you just paved this path for so many people and us to be a contender again, like on the world stage, right? You know, and like what Olivia's doing, and I don't know. I just went blank. What's his name?
Hampton.
Yeah. You know, like, and I mean, a lot of the, I don't think either of them would probably have pushed, maybe Hampton, I don't think he ever did the CrossFit thing, but
Mm-mm.
you know, and so that's a really cool thing. You know, I hope that like fuels you in times of like struggle, because that's a pretty awesome thing, even if you don't believe it.
I half believe it, but it also feels like shitty
Huh?
to like think that about myself.
Sure.
But I do agree to an extent, because there was like I had a following from cheerleading even before that. So there was like
Hmm.
just a lot of eyeballs, and there wasn't really anyone in the
Yeah.
sport yet when I
Right.
started that had that like amount of attention.
Yeah, that's
So
cool. Um,
hopefully I helped a little.
so yeah. um, so in your cheerleading, did you tumble? Did you do competitive cheer?
I did all-star
Yeah.
cheerleading.
All star. And so was it the Scorpions, right? Wasn't that like the Orlando team thing, or no?
Orlando was the Orlando All-Stars. We were called Cheer Corps, Cheer
Cheer
Corps
Corps,
All-Stars,
sweet.
the Apopka
Um,
team.
yeah, Popka team. So like just being in Ocoee, like I had everyone I knew that did competitive cheer on whatever the Scorpions were, and they did that, you know, like all throughout Central Florida. So I didn't know. Um, uh, okay, so all right, let's talk about 2016. I'm super interested to get there, and then we'll talk about like fun things. And okay, so you're prepping for what does it take to qualify for the quad of 16? Because I know it's changed. What did that qualification look like?
So that one is a system that we have not done yet. It was back then, it was 100% dependent on like each country. They could pick their own procedures for how they send. You can send X amount of people, the
Okay.
country decides.
Okay, so the Olympics, so currently the Olympics decide how it's chosen.
Well, yes, it's based off of the international ranking.
Okay.
Um, and I mean, it's varied the last two Olympics after that, but this time
Okay.
there was that it didn't really matter. You could send whoever you wanted. So the USAW procedure at that point was there's like a ranking system that ranks everyone against each other regardless of your body weight. So it was
Hmm.
just like some formula, whatever. And four people could go then. So the top three, based on that ranking system, would go, but the fourth spot was allocated via a separate route, and that was the person who scored the most points at world championships the previous 2 years. So basically
Combined.
whoever did the
Okay.
best at those worlds, you're like allotted a certain amount of points,
Got it.
whatever.
Regardless of how you did during the year, it's just
Correct.
those two competitions. So like
Correct.
if that was the only two that you did, like it would like, or if you didn't do that many, theoretically, right?
Yeah, I don't think at that point there was like now there's like a minimum requirement of
Right.
international like appearances. I don't think there was that then. Um, but the problem with that for me was, since I had just started the sport in 2014, which was the first year that route started, like I
Hmm.
didn't make worlds in 2014. My first worlds was 2015, so like I wasn't even eligible for earning that spot.
Got it.
Um, and then back then, basically, you'd have this ranking throughout the entire quad, and then you take it into Olympic trials, and that was like your last chance. So the ranking still stood however it was, and you could just kind of shuffle around within it at Olympic trials. So going into Olympic trials, I was ranked third,
Okay.
which would have been good to go. And I got bumped down to fourth
Hmm.
at Olympic trials. And back then, like, I think everybody agreed that the ranking system was very skewed towards the super heavyweights and the super lightweights. Like, for me to have maintained that third spot, I would have had to do, I think it was an 11-kilo American
What
record.
what weight class were you in then?
I was a 69.
69. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you would have needed to total what?
I think it was like a 247. Um, which at that time I held the American record at, I believe, was 238 ish.
Okay.
And I had just set that like weeks prior too. So it
Right.
was like an ever increasing total, but then you had to increase it by a large amount.
Right.
Um, and at that time, it was a 49 that was trying to bump me for that spot. And she needed a 180 total to do that.
Hmm.
Um, which now, like, I think our 49 had a 200 total at
Right.
the Olympics this
Right.
year. So very different times. But anyway, I got bumped. I put what I needed on the bar for my last clean and jerk as like a Hail Mary. I don't even think I deadlifted that amount at that point. So I clarked it on stage, did not make it, was not eligible for the 4th spot that ended up going to someone that was ranked, I believe, 6th or 7th coming out of trials.
Right.
And then I won best pound for pound lifter at the Olympic trials.
A lot of irony in that.
Yeah.
That's
so they gave me a little trophy that's like, congrats, best lifter, you did the best here, and then you're not going.
No rings. And so that was Sarah, right? That got the 4th spot?
No, Sarah had the 1st spot. It went,
oh, okay.
Hold on, let me think. Sarah, Morgan, Jenny. Maybe it was only 3. Either way.
Sure.
Same procedures.
Yeah.
The amount of people we send also changes every time.
Right. Okay. And let me get, so you said you're unsure if you had deadlifted, and I've heard this before. I feel like someone told me you only deadlift like marginally over your max clean, right? This is the craziest concept ever. We'll get to some like training specifics, but I want you to know that's wild. I'm not a weightlifting coach like by trade, but I do coach some weightlifting, and that's a mind-blowing concept.
I mean, we tried to fight it for so long. It's like, let's get that pull strength up, and it just is what it is.
It just never goes anywhere. It's so is it just because like you either have it or you don't? There's no grind, right?
I know I can grind through some pulls or some deadlifts. That's just like I honestly I have no idea. It's just like what it is. Same with like my squat strength. It's very similar to whatever my clean is at the time.
That's wild.
It's not enjoyable.
Wild. Yeah. What are you cleaning today? 97% of my back squat. Just letting you know, just in case anyone was wondering. Oh, that just scares me. Okay. So 2016, we didn't make it. How are you feeling there in general? You're 21.
Yeah. Almost. I was 20 at the trials. I turned 21 during the Olympics. I mean, at that point, I was like, I wasn't really upset. I mean, I was upset about my performance, but I was more so upset at, I think, the procedures. Like, I felt very wronged. Like, I felt like it was unfair. Because at that point, like, I was PRing every single event, American records, every single event. Like, my trajectory was like straight up. Like, I could not have been doing any better. So I feel like I did everything that I could. And I do feel like I don't want to say I deserved a spot over anybody else, but I definitely had like earned my way there.
Yeah, sure.
The procedures just didn't agree, I guess.
Right. Well, they don't use those anymore, right?
No, they don't.
I wonder why.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
You know, you can kind of lean into to that too. So then you're in Orlando, right? Are you training at Danny's gym at the time?
Yeah, at that time, I believe we were training out of a CrossFit gym. We had moved around gyms.
Yeah, to be clear, who's your coach? I know who your coach was, but we'll say it for the
Danny Camargo was my coach.
Danny Camargo.
Yeah.
And how long had you worked with him like all the way until you went with Amy, right?
Yeah, he was the owner of the CrossFit gym that I started in.
Right.
So obviously he was there from the start. When I switched from CrossFit to lifting, it was obviously an easy transition because it was just the same person.
You just went downstairs, right?
Yeah, I just like went across. Downstairs.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
And how was that? So like what was that transition like when you made it? So we'll backtrack a little bit. So you were CrossFit and you had some success, didn't you? Go to the teen games and
I did. It wasn't called the teen games then. It was called the Teen Gauntlet.
The Teen Gauntlet.
It was at the games in Carson. It was like at that like Masters area, like the track. Yeah. That's where they did it.
Right. And so you had some trajectory there too, right? Was that like a sit down thought and decision to like transition, or were you just like, I fucking hate running, I'm gonna do weightlifting?
No, because I did enjoy doing CrossFit. Like I really did. And at that point, I didn't really like lifting. Like I would skip squats and pulls because they were hard and I didn't want to do them. But I feel like once I started competing, because I got kind of like coerced into competing, like at a local meet here, local meet there, qualified for a junior nationals. And I went there, and that was the first I saw someone wearing like a USA singlet. I was like, what is that? Like, where do I buy that? I want to get that. And my coach was like, you don't buy that, you earn that. I was like, oh, excuse me. Like, how do I earn that? And I think after that, it would literally started by like seeing a singlet, because I didn't even know at that point that weightlifting was an Olympic sport.
Right.
Until I started going. After that first meet, I basically came back home and I was like, all right, we gotta make something. We gotta make a team, because I need that singlet. And then just kind of went from there.
Fashion drove the the direction of Mattie Rogers. That's pretty good. I mean, I think that's fitting, right? In general.
Yeah.
Everyone has a good origin story. Okay, so 2016. So we're moving forward. You're on your own. What does life look like at this point, leading into the quad? What would be like since it wasn't technically a quad?
Yeah. Well, they flew me to the Olympics for 2016, so I was there for like 3 weeks.
Yeah. Why did they fly you there? What for? Just to like parade you around? Like, were you like a puppet?
I was told that I was the alternate, and I made it exactly.
What does that even mean?
I made it very clear. I'm very upset about this. I don't want to go unless there's a chance that I will be put in and like swapped out. And I was told at the time, like, hey, like if you're looking like you can total more, like whatever, it could happen. So I was like, fine, I'll go. That's not allowed. Not even close to that.
I was gonna say, I was like, that's like, okay.
Yeah, but
okay,
I didn't
so
know.
they just lied to you, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Danny didn't know at the time? Like he didn't
go. He wasn't invited to go with me. And then they called it something. They flew me and this other girl out, and we stayed like off site, not in the village, couldn't train in the training hall. We had to take a bus 2 hours to a CrossFit gym to train. They called it like the Olympic experience, and it was supposed to motivate us. It did. It sucked. It was terrible.
It didn't sound like it would motivate you. That sounds
It was
terrible.
like the most depressing 3 weeks, because I was just like sitting in this apartment.
Yeah, especially because you're not even like in the village. Like,
yeah, we were with the
do all the fun
officials.
shit.
No, it was an hour away. So I came back from that pretty heartbroken, honestly. I wasn't really wanting to train, because I was like, I could have gone and I could have placed well, and like all these like coulda, shoulda, woulda. So I kind of, for the rest of that year, like let myself be a 21-year-old. Like I still trained, but there was like,
Orlando's fun.
Yeah, let me try.
Orlando's fun.
What's a club? What's an alcohol?
I've been downtown.
Yeah. So I had my fun, and I was very short-lived, because I was like, this isn't for me. So 2017 on was really like, I felt like I was like the front runner kind of for the Olympics for the next one. And that's kind of how I took the next few years, until they changed the weight classes again.
Right. And so during that time, you're still a 69 or trying to be a 69?
Yeah, I was a full 69, so I'd weighed like 70-ish.
Right, sure. And so then they changed the weight classes, and like it went to like 60. I don't know. You tell me. What did it switch to?
They switched them to, the closest to me was 71.
71.
So I was like, perfect, love it.
Okay,
I'll gain a few more pounds. It'll be great. 71, they decided, was not going to be contested in the Olympics. This was later on. This wasn't at the same time.
Right.
So I was like, okay, 76.
But it was closer to the Olympics, though.
Yes.
Right.
So they changed all the weight classes, and then at some point after, they were like, okay, also these are the Olympic classes, which was not. They took however many they had and condensed it down.
Right.
So they took out 71. So 76 was the next closest, which I was okay with. It was fine. I wasn't like upset. And things were going pretty well for that. And then I got injured in competition.
Okay.
And basically took that 76 spot that I had on a platter and just like passed it off. And that was to Kate? Yeah.
Okay. And so when did you get injured and what happened?
So it was at a Pan Am's. I don't remember what country we were in. I was like violently ill, like
Okay.
I got food poisoning, which
What year was this? Sorry.
2019.
Okay. I was gonna say it had to be close.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was close. And I was ahead at that time. Like it was getting a little bit tight between me and Kate, but at that point, like I was ahead. I think that there was a lot of back and forth at that one. So that was like the first one that there was like some head-to-head battling.
Sure. And so you knew, sorry to interrupt you, you knew that the qualifications procedure had changed at this point.
Yes. Okay. We knew that it would come down to one of us because there's only one person per weight class.
Right. And how many spots did they have?
4 spots total. Yeah. 4 spots total. So we wouldn't have one in each weight class. You could just have up to one in a given weight class.
Gotcha. Okay. Right. Got it.
So anyway, violently ill, throwing up. Piros, who is our like staff, literally had taken my hand and was like, "Put this down your throat, like just get it out." And so I'm like at the garbage, like. Whether that's relevant or not, I don't know. But I was very much not focused on my lift because I was focused on not either shitting myself or throwing up.
Oh yeah, that would have been a bad idea.
Yeah. So I think it came down to my
Central America. You probably were.
I want to say it was Guatemala, but I'm not sure.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yep. So it came down to the last clean and jerk that I needed to like stay ahead of Kate, win, whatever. I think it would have been a PR too, but I just got like drilled down in the jerk. So I like into basically an overhead lunge. But I got like stuck. Like there was nowhere, like there was no side that it was going to, and ended up herniating a disc in my back. And that was like an immediate thing. Like I could barely walk off stage and I was like, fuck. It was oh yeah. Carla says there's a video of it. There is a video of it.
I know. I'm searching for it. Tell him to send it to me.
Carlos, you heard it. I don't think by watching it, like it doesn't look as bad as it felt. It just looks like someone who missed a jerk, hit their knee.
All right, I'm gonna pull it up. Are you okay if I pull it up?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Yes. Is this it?
Nope, not it. What is this?
2019 Pan Am. So it wasn't 2019 then.
It was the next lift. So
yeah. Oh yeah. But this is the video though.
I guess so. I remember it looking different. Yeah, it was this one.
It's quiet. Holy smokes.
Does it say
oh, not that quiet.
Oh my. Does it say what country we're in?
Probably right behind there.
I don't remember.
Oh, no, it's glitchy.
Oh no.
We'll rewind that, see if we can get it to go. There we go.
And for context, this was like 1 kilo under the 2016 trials Clark that I did. I think it was the first time I tried that much.
Oh.
No lede. Movimiento nulo, un aplauso.
Just roast me.
I wasn't ready for that. I'm sorry. That's not funny.
Aplauso para Mattie.
It's a little funny.
Aplauso para Mattie Roger.
Oh man. And so what are you experiencing right now? I mean, you got
I don't think I like felt anything till I was going down these stairs. I like kind of fell onto Piros and I was like, my legs are not working right.
Who's Piros? Is that like the trainer?
He's like one of our staff, like Team USA head staff. He's a like multi-time Greek Olympic champion. He's like the GOAT in weightlifting.
Got it. Oh yeah. I understand. Yeah.
We have a poster of him in the gym.
Yeah. Okay, got it. I never knew how to say his name.
Yep,
I probably never said it like that. So that's probably why I didn't know. It's glitchy. It's still gonna be glitchy. It is what it is. All right, and so. All right. So did your foot slip?
No, again, I think that's where like the food poisoning came in because I was just like not aware of what was happening. I was just like, just try to get it over your head without shitting yourself. Gotcha.
That's the face. That's the note. That's definitely the no shit face. Right? Don't poop face. Okay. Not funny. Be serious.
A little funny.
And Okay, so you're walking down the stairs, back pain.
Yeah.
What were you experiencing at that point?
Emotionally or physically? Both.
Yes.
I mean, physically, I knew I'd hurt myself, but I couldn't really tell where it was coming from yet because it was like, I mean, you know, like some back pain will like radiate down your legs, and you're like, so I was like, okay, something is hurting, but I have no idea what yet. And there's also like so much adrenaline happening. But also I was pissed because I knew I just lost my like front spot for that weight class. So not only did I hurt myself somehow, to what extent I didn't know, but I knew I'd have to come back and then beat Kate in whatever state I'm in at the next event. So it's a lot of bad at that point.
Sure. And totally understandable. And so that was 140, right? Mm-hmm. This is 2019, right? 140 is something that is pretty regular now, right? Post-injury?
Yeah, I've opened at it a few times, I think.
Okay.
So it was definitely a like comfortable everyday like competition weight.
Even then?
No. That was the first time I'd ever like attempted it for real.
Okay.
That point.
And you're what weight? So this is to get for 76, correct?
Yes. I believe we might have both been competing at 71 there still.
Okay.
But I don't remember.
Right, because 76 wasn't like a weight class that you guys were doing at all. It was only in the Olympics, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, later on in the quad, like, yes, we would move up. But I think that was like right after they changed the weight classes. So we were both still 71s. And anything you do at 71 just counts up to 76 anyway.
Got it. Okay. All right. So that was 2019. And so then what happens next? How do you earn your spot? How do you keep working towards your spot?
So, I mean, basically when I came home, like I couldn't put socks on. I couldn't get dressed by myself. Like it was like probably close to a month until I could even like do things other than walk. And I did not have the like rehab support system that I have now. So a lot of it, like I remember I'd go to the gym, like, okay, we're going to start with a 10-minute walk today. Tomorrow we're going to do a 15-minute walk. We're going to do like PVC pipes, see if I can like do some overhead squats. Like I was free balling it 100% on my own. That's a lot of where the friction between myself and my old coach came in because I felt like I was not being helped or supported. He was basically like, well, let me know when you're ready for a program. And I was like, I can't pick up a bar. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
That's interesting.
So I somehow got myself back to lifting. I mean, it wasn't comfortable lifting by any means. I had issues for the rest of that year and into early 2020. But that was, I think, April, July, or June was the next event I had to compete in. And that one, that's where I met Amy, actually. My coach opted not to go, sent Amy
to where? Sorry.
I actually think it was a different AO2. It was like one where I had to go secure a spot for Worlds. Okay. So we're not like, we have to compete at these international events, but we're not guaranteed spots in them because there's other national lifters trying to get them.
Gotcha.
So between the main internationals, we also have to go to national events to make sure we're still on that like ranking. So they only take the top 10.
Got it. Okay.
So I had to go do or die, qualify for Worlds, very similar to what I had to do this year. My coach didn't go. Amy was already there. So she was asked to stand in for the day. And we really clicked.
Where was it?
Albuquerque, maybe.
Okay. And was this 2020 yet? No, it was just late 19?
Mid-19, July of 19.
So Pan Am's was early 19. Man, you got back to in 6 months? That's wild.
Well, it was April to July, so not even.
So it happened in April, and then you went and competed in July after a month of not even like putting on socks?
I mean, I had to put I feel like you're judging me on all of this.
No, I'm not. No, I'm asking a question. Hey, you made it. You're still standing upright. I'm not like Will. I don't give a shit. Okay. I understand what has to happen. I'm just trying to get a timeline. That's super impressive, right? Yeah. Like, it's just a testament that it can be done. The body's going to do what it does, usually regardless of like, it's nice to have the support. because maybe it happens faster or cleaner or more longevity or whatever it may be. But like with no support and no real knowledge on how to get yourself through it, and this is 5 years ago now, you're a baby, right? Like, so like mentally, I know you're going through the ringer, you're solo, there's like a lot of pressure probably from sponsors and like all these things too. Like that's a lot to manage solo. Did you have a rehab professional at all? I know you found like a body worker at some point.
I had found a
Orlando.
body worker who I think he ended up being my PT long term, but I found him kind of at the tail end of recovery.
Okay.
Or like when I was back to training, when I needed somebody like right away. Like I needed I didn't know how to do the things that weren't lifting. Like I knew how to ease back into lifting once I could get to the bar.
Do you? Are you sure?
No.
I was gonna say, I was like, I've seen that. I don't know.
Okay, well now I feel like I learned a lot from it.
Yeah, that's right.
Then no, my methods were put a belt on at empty bar and rip smelling salts whenever I felt pain, so I wouldn't pay attention to it.
Isn't that wild though? What a crazy concept, right? Like that endorphin rush and that like huge bump like will just spike all hormones immediately and you don't feel anything. It's crazy how that works, right? It's dangerous, but it's pretty cool. Okay. So July, you go to Worlds, you meet like number one like weightlifting cheerleader / coach ever, right? So tell me about Amy. Amy who?
Amy Everett, and also Greg Everett was there. He assisted with that a little bit. But Amy was definitely like the, I guess, like head coach for that stand-in job.
And they run what program?
Catalyst Athletics.
Yeah.
Which
the weightlifting video program. If anyone looks up anything weightlifting, you see Greg, and that's who you hear.
Yes. And I obviously like knew who he was and I knew who she was, but I hadn't like met them. But she coached me through. I think I bombed. Like I think I did terrible. Like no surprise, but it was basically like put what I needed on the bar, take 3 chances at it. I think I made maybe 1 snatch, 0 clean and jerks. So it was terrible.
Sure.
But
not a chance.
But the other person bombed too that I was fighting. So it all worked out in the end. But I had never been, I guess, like mentally coached or handled in any way emotionally. Like anything that I was feeling, it was just like that wasn't discussed, wasn't talked about. So
do you think that's like a male coach to a female athlete, or just like maybe like just a lack of empathy? Is it like a direct thing of like lack of empathy, or is it just not knowing? You know, what does that look like? What are your thoughts there? Because I know that's Amy's like biggest thing, right? Like, you know, obviously she writes the training and stuff, but it seems just from what I've known from other people that have worked with her, like that's where that takes a precedent over like the specifics of like what's actually on the bar every day and things like that.
To an extent, but also I think it is a conscious decision that a male coach could make, because like Greg also excellent at it.
Yeah.
And he coaches mostly female athletes. So it's like, I don't know. I think it just comes down to the person, male or female. It doesn't really matter. Because there's a lot of females that can't do it either. They just like get stressed.
Sure. Yeah.
So that she definitely helped me through that one, because obviously it was mentally like a very difficult time and a lot of stress involved. And I met some of her athletes there too. And so they were like, hey, come to a training camp with us just for fun. You've been training by yourself. Like it'll be great. And so that was at Amy's house maybe a week or 2 after that.
So this is mid 2019, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So up to this point, while your social media presence and kind of like your like your social influence at this point is really high, but you've pretty much trained in a bubble solo, like up to this point.
Yeah.
Like, not really at a camp. I mean, I know Danny sort of had like his own camp, but not really, right? Like he did the teaching thing. And so like you didn't have a ton of athletes there, right? At any point on the world level or even the national level?
No. I had like some of my better friends were athletes there. But I think the next closest there, we had like some national athletes. But sorry if you could hear the dogs.
Tell Carlos to shut those dogs up.
Carlos, close the door. I had been programming for myself lifting wise since the 2016 Olympics, more or less.
Wait,
So I
wait, what? So Dana, hold on, hold on. Whoa. So you had a coach that didn't, and I don't want to like throw Dana under the bus. I'm just trying to like paint the picture. Who was right? So you were writing your own program. So Danny was just like almost like a flow, like just like a
well,
flow coach. Like he would be there and give feedback, or
I've been very particular about what I like say about that era.
sure.
Because I was not given the same grace, and it was very upsetting to me in ways that I was talked about after that split had happened. But basically,
Y'all are struggling over there.
dude,
Tell Carlos to figure it out.
Carlos,
What is happening?
that's his computer.
Of course it is. All right.
Okay, sorry. We thought this would be so professional.
We can do
over
this.
here.
I know. He was like, I love it. It's all right. It looks good. The pink looks great.
Thank you. Basically, after Olympic trials, I just didn't
In 16.
feel in 16. I didn't
Okay.
feel like I was being given things that I needed from a programming standpoint. And there was obviously like conversations around it, whatever, but there was very much like, this is the team's program. This is what everybody gets.
Sure.
Or this is like the online, like anyone who's doing this 8-week, who needs an 8-week cycle, you're getting this one. And it was very much like a copy pasted situation. And there was a couple instances where I'd get to like Worlds and it would be taper week. And I open my program and it's week 1 sets of 10 squats. And I'm like, you didn't even like go in and put in that I'm like at Worlds. So then I'd be like, okay, what's Max Aida over here programming for Alyssa? Okay, I'll do that today. Oh, what's this person doing? So I was like, I just felt like I was left to my own devices too many times where I was like, I need to figure my own shit out. Sure. And he never even really noticed in the gym if I was doing my own program. There was very little awareness. I don't know. And there was a lot of times where he was in there and I was in there and he was in the office and I was training and that's it. There was no like eyes.
Yeah.
And I'd been stagnant for almost 4 years too. So, I mean, was that because I should not have been programming for myself? Yeah. But I do feel like I would have gotten worse had I followed what I was given. I basically used it as a template and was like, as soon as I met Amy, like I was like, oh, this is what like coaching is. And this is what an individual program is. Right. So it was very, very eye-opening to say the least.
Cool. Well, I'm glad that you made the switch. Okay. So you made the switch. You went to Amy's house on July of 2019.
August, because I remember it was on my birthday that I asked her to coach me.
Sweet. Yeah, that's right. We both have August birthdays. Yeah. And so that's cool. Did you like make it a thing? Did you like get her like a box of chocolate? Like, will you coach me? Did you like?
No, because it's so like political when you change coaches at that level because people get accused of poaching and people get upset. So I basically went there in my head knowing it was like my tryout period. Like I wanted to be coached in a training setting and see how we like clicked, whatever.
It was her tryout period.
Well, she just thought I was, thought I was just coming to hang out. She had no idea. And that was intentional because I didn't want her to get accused of poaching.
Sure.
And so we are going to the airport. She's like bringing me to go home. And I was like, so maybe could you coach me if you would be so kind? And she's like, why are you telling me this when you're about to get out of the car? Like, what are you doing? And I was like, okay, bye. And like, I went home. I think I flew home on a red eye, went straight to the gym to talk to Danny because I didn't want anyone to hear otherwise. Like I had to tell them each myself. That didn't go over very well, but it had to be done. It was 100% for the better.
Yeah,
we've gotten shit on endlessly, Amy and I, over it. But like clearly looking at my career from 2016 to 2019 versus 2019 on, like
it's also your choice. Like who gives a fuck what anyone thinks? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? Like it's clear, you follow an individualized plan that's for you with Amy. It's part of Catalyst, regardless of what anyone thinks about it. It doesn't matter, right? Like it's whatever's best for you, right? You're the athlete and it's like what you need to reach your goals. But yeah, it's definitely, the same thing happens in CrossFit, right? You see people switch camps and then you're like, oh, that person is like sort of at this camp, but it's like a template anyways. But yeah, that's good. Well, I'm glad it worked out. So 2019, so you're prepping for this quad, right?
Yep.
You're trying to, you haven't qualified yet at this point, right?
It was like I think it was like the average of our totals throughout the quad. So like I was qualifying, not qualified.
Got it. Okay. And so then how do you, like, at what point do you get your invite?
So we still had Worlds in 2019 where I went as a 71. I think at that point it was evident that I was not going to be able to come back and take the 76 spot.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to start looking at other options, which were cut down and try and go as a 64 or go up and try. I know.
64?
Well, I competed at 63 in the beginning and I was like, look.
Yeah, that was a long fucking time ago.
Right. But
7 years.
Could I do it? Yes. Would it be the end of my career? For sure. Just to try to do that? Also, yes.
Like, just, yeah,
that
would have been rough.
No, there's no way. And I was like, even if I could, like, I don't think I could maintain enough strength to do what I needed to do. Yeah, you'd be in such a deficit
all the time. Your training volume would have to cut down so much that.
And I was already injured. Like, right. I didn't even consider it for a second. Okay. So 87 was the only option. And all of my totals counted up for that from 71. And so the ruling was you have to weigh in the weight class you intend to compete at twice. You don't have to lift, you just have to weigh in. So at 2 events, I had to weigh 81.01 or more. And Carlos, it was very hard. I think the heaviest I got, like waking up, was like 77 maybe. And so from 77 all the way up to 81, that was chugging water right before, eating as much salt as I could to hold on to that water. Like I had someone make me, I didn't use it. So before anyone accuses me of cheating, I never used it. A cross necklace, but the cross was made out of lead. And it weighed 1 kilo.
Holy shit. You're just like walking around like this.
It looked ridiculous. It was like this big, but I was like, if I need it, it's religious jewelry in the rules, that's allowed. But I never used it.
That's so funny. Okay. And so you had to weigh in twice.
Yeah. So that was up through probably early 2020. And then everything got canceled from there. Right.
And so before it all got canceled and pushed, because the Olympics didn't get canceled till like May, right? Technically.
Yeah. We had no idea what was going on until then either.
Right. And so you had qualified, you had gotten an invite and you were going. Yes?
Yep.
Okay. And so talk me through COVID. Just briefly. I just hate talking about COVID so much. It just gives, I hate it. So are you still in Orlando? So you're working with Amy. Are you going to Oregon or Washington?
Oregon.
Right. Are you going there like weekly, monthly, every other month?
Maybe quarterly before that. Okay. We didn't see each other that much. We tried to arrange it so I would like go there before we'd fly out to a competition. Mm-hmm. So when we could travel together too, a lot of times leaving from the West Coast happened to be closer too. But we don't, and we still don't train in person that frequently. We do when we can, but it's hard going from literal opposite corners of the country.
3,000 miles. How long?
Yeah. Sure. So I don't think I saw her out of competitions the entire year of 2020, because we competed. I think our last one was in January of 2020. Maybe, I think the Arnold happened in February, and that was the last one. And then the next one that I had to do was December, and it was a virtual one. And she came for that. But I feel like it was just like for everybody. We were just like floating around in limbo. We didn't know what was happening. We didn't know. We'd heard rumors the Olympics was going to be canceled completely. And then when it finally came out that it was postponed, like sucked, but it was better than it being canceled.
Right.
So I guess our whole like programming had to change because we are prepared over the last 4 years to peak in summer of 2020. And now you have to extend that a whole other year.
Yeah.
And then come end of 2020, they're like, okay, we have to add another qualifier in 2021. Everybody has to go. So like there was still qualifying.
Got it. So you had to qualify still, or you just needed to show up and like not.
I think it was one of those that
shitty.
I think you just had to show up. It was an IWF thing because of drug testing, because no one could get drug tested in competition for an entire year.
Right.
So they made one.
For sure.
Probably. Who knows?
Got to hop on that train. I know you didn't.
No, fuck no. I think that one was in, I want to say like the Dominican Republic or something, early 2021. And that was like our last qualifier. And then we had the Olympics that summer.
Cool. And how was the Olympics?
I thought it was bad until I saw all of this year's Olympics, and it is even worse in my head. Like,
what do you mean? Just like how it went down? Like the actual, like being at the Olympics?
The whole experience that we had, like I was in Tokyo for 4 days total, and that was the longest time. Like the village, like you had to fly in, you had, I think, 24 to 48 hours after you competed to get out of the country entirely. So like there was no.
Was that a COVID thing?
Mm-hmm.
Was that was still a COVID thing, right?
Yeah, it was all COVID restrictions, no crowd, no audience.
That's right.
We couldn't go watch any other sports. We could just get on the bus to training, get on the bus to competition. That's it. And it was just so like fever dreamish, because you get there and you're like, oh my God, it's the Olympics. Like you walk in the village and you're so excited, but then you're also like, okay, I have 2 days until I compete, and then I have to pack and leave, and like you don't get to see anything, you don't get to enjoy anything. And then you see it, like this summer was like a very regular Olympics, and there's like so much of that Olympic experience is in like all of the time you spend there, all of the things you see, all of the people you meet, and like just being in that village environment. I mean, it's a whole city of professional athletes. Like that's cool in itself.
Cool. Sure.
And having all of the audience in the crowd, like competing to an empty stadium is like, it's weird. It's just weird.
Yeah. Understood. Well, you just said you thought it was terrible until you saw this year's.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that? Sounds like
I thought it was already bad, having experienced it, but then when I saw what it should have been.
Oh, got it. Okay,
like
I thought you meant that this year's was terrible too. Okay,
no.
It just made it worse.
It made it worse.
I understand.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. All right, I understand. That totally makes sense, right? Like that's like, obviously you go and you get your rings and do the tattoo thing and like all of that, but then you don't get to experience all the other stuff. Okay, and how did your lifts go at the Olympics?
Not good.
Relative for you and your ability, or relative to like the competition, since you were competing with people 15 pounds heavier than you?
Both. I mean, it's hard because like I only went 2 for 6. I almost bombed. I missed almost everything. But I still finished 5th or 6th, I think. But then when I think about that total, it was like my worst day, almost one step above worst case scenario. That would have been a medal in my actual body weight.
Right.
So like, cause I only weighed in at 77.1. So like I'm competing against girls that probably cut down from 90 plus.
Right. So 15 pounds, more like 25 pounds heavier than you.
Yeah. And that was the first time I'd been like in a warm up room, in anything with those girls. And I like realized, I was like, oh fuck, these are big girls. And like, I don't look like that. And that didn't like bother me, but it is kind of like a realization of like, fuck, this kind of sucks.
Totally understandable.
Yeah. I think all of the process of getting there and everything that like, I don't know, everything that had happened leading up to that with COVID, with just everything being like a big old chaotic like swirl. Mentally, I did not handle it very well. And at that point I was like 100% raw dogging like my anxiety and depression, and like factor that into everything else. And then the pressure of competing at the Olympics, like it definitely all kind of worked up into this like spiral. And I had really bad panic attacks. I mean, I still do, but at that point in my life, before I was like medicated and like managing things, they were like very frequent. And I had one, I mean, I felt it coming, and I learned a very valuable lesson to just like, don't fight it. Like, don't ignore that it's happening, because I felt it coming the night before. And all that day before I weighed in, I was like on the edge, and I knew it. Like, I couldn't even like have a conversation without like crying. I was like, fuck, I just got to get through competing, and then I could have my little panic attack, my little mental breakdown later. Like, it's a later problem. And I learned from that you can't you can't do that. Like, you can't just push it aside and be like, we'll deal with this later. And I don't know if it could have changed anything, but once I was under that like pressure, and there was adrenaline, and there was like competition nerves compiled on top of that, it all just like imploded, and I had like a complete panic attack, like I feel like on the most public stage possible, even though nobody was there. And like that was like, I don't know if it was the sole reason for the performance that I had, but it was a very large reason as to why it went the way it did.
Okay. And was that like your turning point to like reach out and get help and like start to address it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I had thoughts before, but I was like, I don't want to introduce either like anxiety medication or things that I haven't been doing this whole time right before the biggest event of my career. Because it was at its worst like the months leading up to the Olympics. Because like I know that especially with medication, like there's kind of an experimental phase and finding what works. And I was like, I don't want to fuck with that right before I need to be like on my A game. But I vividly remember being of course I got pulled for drug testing. I was in the drug testing room, and I was like, Amy, I am unwell. Like, I think I need to go to the hospital. Like, I feel like I'm about to have like some serious issues. And like ended up somehow, I honestly don't even remember like flying home. I don't remember any of that. I was like so like in such like a heightened like panic state. But the day I got home, I was like, okay, let me find a therapist, let me find a psychiatrist, like let me actually get a handle on this instead of doing what I was doing, which I feel was like a little bit irresponsible. Not saying it was wrong or bad, but like I could have been doing so much more than I was. I just didn't. And I guess I didn't know.
Right. And so we'll talk about that just for a little bit if you're okay with it. Because I think it's important to like normalize at least somewhat. So is this something you felt like you've dealt with forever, like your whole life? Is it something that came on maybe when you were underage living on your own or something like that? Or is this kind of like a childhood thing that you just kind of grinded through?
I think it's been a forever thing. I just didn't have a name for it.
Pissed off Mattie.
Yeah, like I honestly, and like after like I got my diagnosis, like I talked to my siblings, which is like, ew, uncomfortable. Like we don't talk about feelings in this family, but like myself, and I have two siblings, and we all have like very similar issues, and like we've all like kind of come together to like okay, we don't have to like suffer this way. Like we can handle it, and we can talk about it, and it doesn't have to be uncomfortable. But mental illness like very much runs in our family, both sides. And it's like, thanks for the heads up, Mom. But I thought it was me being like irritable or mean or nervous. And I just thought that's what existence was like my entirety of my childhood. And I guess trigger warning, but I did self-harm through majority of my teen years. And I didn't think that was normal, but I didn't know enough about mental health or anything revolving around it to know that it didn't, like you didn't have to live that way. Like I didn't know there were ways to get out of that.
Sure. And so you have siblings. I didn't know that. How many siblings do you have?
Two siblings.
Two brother, sister, two brothers, two sisters.
Younger brother, older sister.
Got it. And so are you guys close?
We are now as adults. We weren't growing up, but again, like
it's so common.
Yeah.
It's so common. Like it's so crazy to see really young, really close, teenage years, drifting, and then like comes back together. Like just so it's such an interesting thing. And they're part of your support system?
Yeah, I think we're still in the early like coming together phases. Sure. Like we are much closer, but there's still a lot of like ick
Sure.
in there.
Yeah.
Just because I don't think all of us are comfortable with like knowing how to support each other yet.
Got it. And so you're still solo in Orlando at this point,
Mhm.
right? You were married prior, correct?
Correct.
And so was that a support system, at some point, was Amy there to help, I assume, when it came to that? And like, what did that look like prior to, like what were the struggles, right? Like, like I said, you were kind of in this weightlifting bubble, even though you were basically at the peak of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that a trigger, like something that's causing it to be more challenging? Is that something you're realizing and processing, or is it just like all in one? Or is it like, do you feel like there's like certain things that maybe made it worse, or certain things that helped early on?
I mean, I think I did and still do enjoy training by myself. So that part of it was okay. Obviously it's hard. Like you are your own supplier of energy. You can't like feed off of other people. No one's going to be there to hold you accountable, whatever. But like that, I still like, it's like peaceful, and I do like that. But I do, especially like with my previous relationship, there was whatever you would call the opposite of support. That's what that was.
Got it.
And there was a lot of shaming, I guess, surrounding mental health too. And like me trying to get help, starting medication was like a big problem. So I really did lean on Amy for a lot of that, because I do feel like that portion, like and everything revolving around my mental health then transferred over to my training and helping that.
Mm-hmm.
So I leaned on Amy a lot with that, and she helped. I mean, she has gone through it herself, so I think she could be like a guiding hand for that. But it was me and Amy, and that was about it.
Cool. Well, I'm happy you found her, and yeah, we'll move on. So Olympics 21,
Mm-hmm.
and so what do the next few years look like? So at this point in 21, you're a full-time athlete. Are you full-time? Because obviously you make a lot of money just by like winning weightlifting events. I know, I understand that. Lots of dollars come in through podiums and things, but
No.
sponsors, I know. And so $0, right? Like none.
We don't
Zero.
get prize money. Sometimes there'll be medal bonuses, but that's it.
Right. And so it's solely sponsor driven at this point. And what does that look like? How are you? Do you have a manager?
Mm-hmm. I do have an agent, Cooper.
An agent. And how long have you had an agent?
I've had two different agents, but I think I started with my first one in 2015. Camille LeBlanc actually reached out to me on Instagram one day, and she's like, "Hey, I think you would work well with my agent. Like, here's his number." And I didn't have any sponsors at that time, so I don't know why she reached out. I mean, thank God she did, because that's what started all of it. And we weren't like friends or anything. I was like,
right.
It was just like starstruck that she would reach out. But I started with,
especially in 2015, because like she was coming off of a win.
I know.
That's so
and
cool.
I was still very much like infatuated with CrossFit at that point.
Right.
Like, why is she messaging me? So of course I started with her agent. I'm going to do anything she tells me. And his name was Jason.
It wasn't Dave, right? Oh, okay. I was going to say, It wasn't Dave, right?
No. His name was Jason.
Dave, like, give her money. You know what I
mean? No. But I was with him up until, I don't know, like 2021-ish.
Okay.
Because he kind of transferred out of, he's still involved, but he's a firefighter now. So he's more on that side. So I just transferred to another agent within that same agency. His name's Cooper, and it's great.
Cool. Awesome. And all right, so you're in Orlando and training, it's over, the Olympics are over. Next quad, or I don't know, whatever you call it, triplet, I don't know, whatever, right? It's 3 years.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Is that the goal right away, right? To get back to 76 or take that spot, or like what does that look like, and what are the goals?
Yeah, I definitely like ended the last quad and came into this one on my like redemption arc. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
gotta do better. Like I know I could do better. And then they changed the weight classes again.
Right.
So they took out 76, and I think
Was that along with like the steroid use, like with the 90, whatever 94 that they took out of the men's?
I don't remember why they did it. I honestly like it was because it was the same 10 weight classes, but they just took out a different 5. So we are left with an entirely different 5. Not some of them were the same, but different ones contested. So it was 81 would have been the one I was going for.
Back to 81. All right.
Back to 81.
All right.
Which I was like, fine, whatever. It's better than 87. Anything's better than 87.
Sure.
And God, I feel like this quad was such a blur because I feel like 2021 just happened. But I feel like I was doing pretty well early on. And then things got real hard, real fast. And it went from like a total that I like could do. It'd be hard, but I could get there.
What was that total? What would that total need to be?
Initially, we are thinking anything in the 250s would have been good. And this quad, it was not the average. It was just your highest one goes.
At any point in the quad?
More or less. There's like a 18-month like period.
All right.
But yes, which ended up being a bummer because you could go compete once and just weigh in, which is what a lot of the 81s did because they are coming down from 87. So they do one total at 81, never cut weight for a year and a half, 2 years, and then just go to the Olympics at 81.
Mm-hmm.
So that's more or less what happened. The 81s got really stacked towards the second half of qualification, mm-hmm. and that total went from, like 250 probably be good to, I think it ended up being like a 263 would have been the minimum.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Because this procedure for this quad was you have to be top 10 in your weight class to be eligible, like top 10 worldwide. And then the country, our procedure on top of that was whoever's ranked the highest goes. And there were 3, but all of our girls were ranked like 4th, 5th-ish. Right. So like in every single weight class it was possible, we had someone that was eligible, mm-hmm. but it was just so tight with all of our girls. So could I have done a 263 if I was healthy and like cooking? Yeah. Like I'd done it in training or close to it. I'd done at least a 260 in training. But around, I want to say November-ish is when I started like having the symptoms of the injury that I ended up having to withdraw for. And I think ignoring them, trying to like push through and like finish out the quad, which ended the qualification at, I think May 1st, mm-hmm. Is really what kind of did me in. Because had I like stopped right away and like, okay, let's handle this, I don't think it would have gotten as bad as it did. But no one's going to do that. No one's going to be like, oh, this hurts, I'm going to stop right when I need to be like trying to qualify. Like, I don't think anybody would have done that.
Right. Okay. And so now we're at 2023 ish, mm-hmm. and so summer. So when did the pain start? Beginning of 23?
It was off and on like mid 23, but come like October, November-ish, it was like a constant thing.
Okay. And you had obviously gone through like a big move and things like that. And so like, do you feel like that played a big role in like maybe just like, like all the allostatic load, like the external stressors, like not training related, like hammering down on you?
I do. I actually like for a good bit of that, like 2023 was like the year of chaos for me. Like for those that don't know, I got divorced and it started in January and it took all like the whole year. And I legally can't disclose a whole ton about that, but it was very traumatic. There was a lot of
stuff.
Yeah, a lot of stuff, a lot of
stuff.
a lot of unsafe things that triggered my panics that I already had. So I was like kind of proud that I was still like training, and like I wasn't training that poorly. Like I was kind of doing good. And I was like, I'm just like, I can just block it off. Like I'm so good at like going in the gym and just like forgetting about it. But eventually that caught up. And I think that's when it caught up was the end of the year. And I really do think once I got my body out of that like fight or flight mode and into safety, which is when I moved, was because I was around October, like that's when like shit hit the fan. Like I would have thought I just get myself out of that situation and everything will immediately start getting better. But it got significantly worse before it started getting better.
Right.
And like through like therapy and talking to people, they did say that that's very common. It's kind of like a release that happens and your body's like, oh my God, I'm safe. Like now I can break down. Like now it's okay.
Yep.
And I mean, I had a lot of like weird things. Like I lost hair in like October, December, like just regular body
all over the
function.
place.
Yeah. It was like the weirdest things were happening. It's like, what is going on?
Yeah.
But it makes sense now. It really does.
Right.
It's just unfortunate.
Yeah. The body will do that. Right. So like when someone's in a firefight, like a gunfight, they'll be shot. And if it's not life threatening at that moment, they won't feel it, right? And they'll keep going until they get to safety, and then they'll realize like, oh my God, I'm bleeding, blah, 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 right? And so like, like the body will, and the mind will, prioritize life and whatever it needs to over, something that can be pushed off, but eventually it'll catch up and, you'll realize it. Okay, so late year, you start having all of these symptoms. I know you start having some nerve pain, a lot of nerve pain, apathy or atrophy, numbness, et cetera, et cetera. So talk us through that and kind of leading into the decision to not like make a run at the Olympics. Or the forced decision, probably not a decision, but just the forced hand.
Yeah. Well, when I first started like feeling pain, I go get it looked at. Doctors are like bursitis, or let's look at your labrum, or like the common things. And it took.
And you're having leg pain, right? Like lateral leg pain.
Yeah, it felt initially like it was more up in like the hip joint, which is why I was like, oh, bursitis, kind of like that makes sense. We'll go with that. We'll get an injection for that. But then it started shooting down my lateral quad more and more. And then came like weakness and like weird, like I was noticing that leg was getting like smaller and smaller. I was shifting a lot. I like literally just could not push off of it. I would go to like do a pull for like a heavy clean and it'd get to about my knees and it'd literally just feel like there was like a power outage in that leg. Like there was just nothing coming out of it. And obviously like it hurt a good bit too. But the fact that it just was not functioning was more worrisome because I couldn't do what I've always done, which is like, just forget that it hurts, rip some smelling salts, do what I have to do, wrap it up.
Go, baby.
Yeah. I couldn't do that anymore. I was like, well, that's always worked in the past. Like, what do I do now that my last ditch effort doesn't work? But eventually I got a nerve conduction study done, all the works. And someone was like, oh, you're like kind of fucked up. And I hadn't, I hadn't realized that I had lost sensation, like touch. Like I, in my head, when I picture losing feeling, it was very different. And so when I got all of those tests done, I was like, oh yeah, I can't feel that.
Right.
Like I didn't even notice.
It's weird. Yeah. What's weird when it's like, you feel it in your fingertips a lot, right? Like if your hands go numb from like an overhead squat set or something like that, right? Like you feel it immediately because there's so much dexterity and fine motor and the sensory nerves are so much closer together. But like on large muscle groups like that, the way that your dermatomes are done, you basically can't, it's hard to realize unless you're like actually like assessing it directly because you would just kind of rub over it and you're like, oh, this feels normal. And so, yeah, that makes sense.
And well, and also because there's so much pain with like shooting nerve things too.
Oh,
You're like, what do you mean I don't have feeling? I feel a lot.
Yeah, it feels fucking hurts. Terrible. What are you talking about? I feel everything.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think I got that diagnosis finally in maybe March of 2024. And that was all I needed to know that it wasn't going to get any better. I think there was one more event left at that point in Thailand. And so that's where I would have needed to PR my total by like 10 kilos. And I was like, it's just not happening. Like
Right.
I could go and try, but I know it's not happening. And at this point, it's not even safe to like just put whatever on the bar and try and like throw myself under it. Because at that point, I'd also started losing bladder control, like ability to like brace under a bar. I couldn't either. So that's as literally the day I got that, I was like, okay, like I think I called Amy and I was like, this is what they said. It makes a lot more sense than anything else. And like, there's just no way in 2 weeks that I'm going to be at lifetime PR shape. So we need to make a decision here. And that's what we did.
Got it. And so this was March, and you're obviously on the mend, right? And you just, where'd my pen go? There it is. And you just totaled 240.
240. I'd love a 250, but
Sorry,
no.
my bad. We're gonna pull the videos up too in a minute. So what did you hit? What did you finish with?
A 106 snatch and a 134 clean and jerk.
Got it. Okay, so without digging too much, I don't want to give Will too much screen time here. I don't know. He doesn't agree with that. So rehab, basically combo PT, weightlifting, Amy, and Will. How's that been? Obviously, you've had success with it, but what is it like having like two hands in the pot? Because you've never had anything like that, right?
No. If I'm honest, it has far surpassed my expectations. Like I think a little part of me had come to terms with like, I might not be able to lift pain-free again. Like this might just be a thing. And I wasn't okay with it, but I was like, if that's what it is, like, let's just see how close to pain-free I can get and go for, and then make any career decisions at that point. But I took 6 full weeks off and I worked exclusively with Will, thanks to you. And we did a lot of, to me, it felt like very like in-depth things. Like I was like logging when I peed, like very like things that I would never have thought to do. And nothing with a bar at all until May. So from mid-March to May was just no barbell. I was fine to do CrossFit, heavily scaled. I did anything that had a bar, I would replace it. Right. Anything jumping for a little bit, I had to replace it. So there wasn't a lot of options, but it was like I wanted to move still.
Yeah. You did a lot of gymnastics. You're good at that.
I did a lot of gymnastics, and it was so fun. Like I loved it. I think the first day back in the gym, I was like, I'm gonna do muscle ups because
I know. I saw that, and I was like, that's a fucking terrible idea, Mattie. And I was like, your legs are broke. Don't break your shoulders.
I didn't care.
And so you had these like pretty marked neurological deficits, some atrophy, numbness, incontinence, and so all of that, like, do you feel like you're getting hypertrophy back in the leg? Is it growing, like the size of the leg growing?
It's growing.
Yeah. And then have all of your other neurological deficits subsided, like the numbness and the incontinence and things like that? Yeah,
I think the incontinence and like all of the core stuff was stuff that we focused on first, right, before we tried loading anything else. And then I think we eased back into squats, but when we started, like I was still having that like shooting pain. So we just had to we had to manage it. It was like, okay, the rule was like less than 4 to 5 out of 10 pain. Right. If it lingers more than 24 hours, like that's when we pushed it too far. And that's how we did everything for the first couple months.
Amazing. Isn't that amazing?
That's amazing.
In case anyone's wondering, that's called graded exposure, and it's literally all rehab is ever. Rehab is super simple, right? Pain and like the in-depths of diagnostics and that kind of stuff is so complex that we think we have our head wrapped around it and we don't, right? But rehab's simple. You just do a little bit. How did you respond? And just test, retest all the time. It's like CrossFit, but like slower. It's just test, retest constantly, right? Don't do too much too soon. Calm it down. And Will, when we met, talking about it, right, I was like, all right, we can do this. And then you started talking about the neurological stuff and like the economist was like, nope, I was like, just out of my, it's not my thing. It's Will's thing. And he's amazing at it. He's a good dude. Okay. So lifting came back and it's been going well.
It has been. I think initially it was a little rocky. I think like I expected like by the time I'm lifting, there'll be no pain. Zero out of 10. And that's just not how it goes. Very wrong. And so wrong. So I'm like doing my like 30% work sets and I'm like, oh my God, it hurts. Like it's never going to get better. Like it was hard for me to deal with because I was like, it just wasn't, I don't know why my expectations were so high, if I'm honest, but they were. And I would always check in with them like, this kind of hurt. Like, is that normal? What do we need to do? And like, talk me off the ledge. And then, I mean, I think anybody knows if you've ever come back from an injury, it's kind of like this. Yep. So I've had a lot of ups, had a big old down for a little bit.
Right. I was going to say you had like one real setback, right? Like July, I think. I felt like we were chatting at that point. Like I think you went to pull off the floor or like maybe like one of your first cleans or like the second week into it.
Time for some reason. Like there was no like, nothing happened. There was nothing like I didn't push too hard. It was just like, I don't know, just a week and it was rough and it was bad. I was like, oh God, we're taking 100 steps back. But then the next week, like
it's totally fine.
It's just what it is. And I also learned, I don't know, it doesn't make sense yet. When I'm like almost to my period, like the couple days before is when I feel the most of that like nerve pain comes back.
Interesting.
So I'm noting it and observing it.
Sure.
And
it's not panicking, right?
Not panicking.
And not panicking. That's
right.
Good.
Like when I feel pain, I'm like, what day is it? And I'm like, okay, it's okay.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Something that females have to work through with like hormonal changes, but it also shows that like pain has just so many more variables and like structural deficit, right? And that pain and like sensory response can linger for a really long time, even once this is like the whole concept of non-specific low back pain, right? Like people have back pain from whatever physical thing they have, and then it still comes out when like there's high times of stress, right? So like the only predictor of injury is a previous injury. That's the only one, right? Like there's no like actual like imbalances and all these terms that sound really fancy. Like they don't have a lot of real merit in the research. But if you've had an injury and you have the likelihood or like the likelihood of you having that injury again is really high, right? Or in high times of stress, the body's like, oh, I know how to produce bad things in this area and it'll just like come out, right? And so like, you know, if cortisol's up and, you know, dopamine is down, et cetera, it's just like, oh, I remember being able to like really express pain successfully out of like this little region, and it's like all my focus there. So that makes sense, but it's super common.
Yeah.
Okay. So you did a local meet at the gym. Went okay. What did you total there? This was like a month ago, right?
Yeah, 237, I think. It was just a couple of weeks before the other one.
And all right, I'm gonna pull up. Don't like demonetize me while I watch this video, okay? I don't know. YouTube might demonetize me anyways. It's all right. It's not a big deal. All right. And okay. So all right. So we'll just kind of like watch through this a little bit. And have you ever had a camera on you like this in the back for like an event?
Yes, but it's usually someone I don't know, so I'm not aware of it, you know? Like there's like All Things Gym or whoever's at these like international events.
Right.
But since it's a Carlos, I was aware.
Did you say since it's a Carlos or since it's Carlos?
No, since it's a Carlos.
A Carlos, yeah. And this is in Texas, right?
Yeah.
And this is what, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
No. Yeah? Week and a half.
Week and a half. Yeah.
How did you feel going into this? What was the thought? What did you need? What did you need to do? What did you know you could do? And yeah.
I think that was the hard part.
It's not on your channel, buddy. You can't do it. It's not on your channel. It's Mattie's.
Oh my gosh.
It's Mattie's footage.
I I think that was the hardest part for me, like mentally going into the week or the weekend, is because I didn't know what I could do. Like usually you have your training to fall back on and you're like,
Right.
I know I can do
here.
this. Yeah.
Right.
But like all of my training has been like just trying to build week to week. And so it was still building to this.
Yeah.
And I had
Which is how it should be in rehab. Sorry to cut you off, right?
No,
I think
yeah.
that everyone, it's when you're coming back from rehab, and that's what people don't understand, is this is the risk you take, right? Of like being here, but it's also what is required, right? Like you have to basically, when you know that you have a timeline, you're coming back from an injury, to make sure you're over prepared, right? Means that you probably rushed it too fast, right? So it's like if you would have hit these numbers 4 weeks ago, you probably, because that would make you feel more comfortable theoretically, right?
Right.
But it increases the odds of a setback drastically, right?
Right.
And so it's better to come into this like with that steady progression instead of like what you just said, right? Like of like, oh, I've been here before, I'm in this deload now, but like you don't really have any of that, right? Because you're coming off of an injury. You back off some, but you're planning to hit numbers that you're still building up to at that point.
Right. And like I was so glad I did that local meet first, because at least I had that to fall back on and be like, okay, if I hit like 105, 132 a few weeks ago, I'm probably good for 1 or 2 kilos more each. Like very realistically, very doable. And that's literally what we based my openers on, was how things felt and went there. But my snatches had just been in like in the gutter. It happens. Everybody has like phases where one lift is going better than the other. And for me, snatches were just like not clicking that great the few weeks prior. So we actually lowered my opener a little bit here just to make sure like I got something, because we had a bare minimum total I needed, which was a 234, which would have put me dead last on the ranking, but on the ranking.
Sure.
But there were 10th. There were people after me in heavier weight classes that would have competed here that could have knocked me out of that. So that was bare minimum. Obviously that's not what we wanted, but if that's what I could get, fine. 237 was a comfier spot. I think like 6th or 7th. And then the next jump above that to move me up to like 5th was a 243, which I was just like, I don't really want to push it. Like, I don't need that. I'm happy. 6th, 7th is very comfortable. I'm not going to get bumped. Like, I don't want to just put something on the bar and go for it, because I don't think my body's there yet. Perfect.
Okay. And so just a small step back. So we chatted in the summertime, and you were, I think at that point you had committed obviously to not pushing for the Olympics. Thailand wasn't going to happen. And so you had to make the decision of if you were going to continue weightlifting. So I kind of skipped over this. It just like you had to make the decision if you were going to continue weightlifting at all, right? Mm-hmm. Like that was like a big, long process and thought. You have a job, you have a company that you run, and so you have financial backing, right? Like you have the opportunity to just move on, right, and go to the next phase in your life, theoretically, right? Mm-hmm. And so what is that decision like? So it's pause, probably not the greatest time to make a huge shift. We'll come back to this. We'll just keep you on the screen there. What does that look like? We talked and you were like, Worlds, and there's like a really good chance to do well there. And, but I've heard you say recently that you're prepping for the next quad. And so like, that's the decision. So talk me through that. How did you make the decision to continue training and continue doing this for another 4 years? Theoretically committing to that?
There's definitely a lot of back and forth, and
with you and Amy, or just
no, just with myself.
Okay.
With deciding whether or not I knew I wanted to lift, like I wanted to get back to be healthy so that I could lift because I enjoy it. But I was like, do I want to put myself back in those same scenarios where I'm like constantly stressed, constantly like in do or die situations? It's really not that fun because it's just so stressful.
Sure. Definitely.
And I had to think about that. And this is like, sounds so cheesy, but the day I decided to withdraw, I planted flowers. I love growing things. I love flowers.
Oh, I lost you.
Oh, can you hear me?
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Carlos can help.
Carlos, SOS. Am I here?
I got nothing. Can you guys hear?
I can hear you, but it's. Can you hear me now? It shows you as muted. Oh, Evelyn says we could hear. Everyone can hear us. Carlos, if you're here. Assist, assist. Sorry, guys. I don't know what's happening.
Hey, we can't hear.
I don't run the show.
Stay in.
Everyone says we could hear.
Yeah.
Everyone can hear us. Okay, turn it down. We'll just be on standby till CJ comes back. I don't want it to be the me show. That makes me very nervous. But I guess if you guys have questions in your comments, I could answer that till we get a CJ back. Tell us about today. All I did was train, squat. There's a hurricane coming, so I had to get it done this morning so that tonight we could be in hurricane mode.
There we go.
Oh,
hello?
You're back. You're back.
I still can't hear you. What the fuck is happening?
We could hear you. Luna, Tuna's doing good. She's right. Oh, no, she's not right here. This is Lily. Tuna's in the door. Tuna, come here. Bubba, let her in. Can you hear me now?
Hello?
I can hear you.
No, please hold.
Oh
Can you
my-
guys hear me?
I can hear you. We can hear you.
All right. Hello?
Can you hear me?
No. Why can't I hear? You guys can hear me. I
Yeah.
can't hear Mattie. Why can't I fucking hear Mattie?
And they can hear me. Can
Hello?
you hear me? Can you hear me?
What is happening? Oh my god.
This is the worst technical difficulty.
Can I hear?
Well, as long as you guys can hear me. Tuna. We'll get Tuna in here.
What just
Special guest.
happened?
Special guest Tuna. We got Bubba instead. Not as good. Hi, Bubba. Tuna, come here. Tuna, come here. Come here.
So loud.
Come here. Here's Tuna. Hi, Tuna. Hey, Tuna.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Nothing? Oh my god. I can't believe this is happening. I can't hear anything.
Oh, no. Bless you. We love pitties. Oh, now it's all gone. Now it really just is the me show. Me and the Tuna and Bubba show. Bubba, do you want to say hi? You want to say hi? I would show you their tricks, but they don't have any. Not really.
All right, hello?
Can you hear me?
Oh my god. Finally. Holy
We're back.
What
We're
the
back.
fuck just happened?
I showed them all the dogs. Well,
That was good. Perfect. Jesus Christ. Sorry, everybody. That was insane. My roadcaster did this. It basically was just like disconnect everything. It did this yesterday too, out of nowhere. All right. Okay. This is a good question. We'll get to this in a second.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So where were we? Deciding if you were gonna prep for the next quad.
Oh yeah. I was about to tell you my cheesy story.
I'm ready.
Okay, so basically, I planted a flower, or I planted an array of flowers on the day that I decided, and I said, I'm gonna just sit with whatever I feel, not make any decisions, and just like do my rehab, do my little walks, do my little CrossFit, and once this flower blooms, one, I'll feel better, and two, it'll be a better emotional time to make any kind of decision like that.
Pretty flower. So your time frame was on biology, like just like wait for it to bloom. Okay, and how long did that? How long
I don't
did
know.
that
It's like a month, maybe a little more.
What kind of flower did you plant? What
As
kind
a
of flower did you
dahlia,
plant?
a dinner plate dahlia. So it was like this big, and when it bloomed, I was like, "It's my time." but as cheesy as it is, it made me like have to think about things, not rush any decisions, get in a better like mental state. It was great plan. I'm gonna do it again every time.
Every time. Hopefully you don't have to do this too many more times
Well,
in life.
anytime there's a major decision, I'm planting a flower.
Planting a flower. Right.
But basically, I felt like I wasn't done yet. Like I think I'll know when it's my time to retire. I'll feel like I've accomplished all that I can, and like I don't feel that way. I feel like there's a lot left to be done. And I think also because right before I got hurt, even given the circumstances I was in, I was like at my best shape ever. So to me, that means that I haven't reached my like peak shape, form, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to leave the sport without having at least like a fair try at getting there.
Yeah.
So that's how I wanted to approach this quad, of just like trying to be my best. I could give two shits about the Olympic qualification. I know everyone is like 2028, like you could go for it, you could do it. They could only send one person. They could make some outlandish ruling procedure. I have no control over that. And I'm not going to spend what's likely my last 4 years of competing miserable, because that's all I'm focused on. Okay. So I said, if I'm going to continue, I'm not going to retire. I'm going to do it on my terms, in my way, and for myself, and not with like the sole goal, eggs all in one basket of the Olympics.
Got it. I like it. I think that's probably better. Less pressure.
Yeah. And I perform better under less pressure anyway. So like, could the stars align and it like all works out? Maybe, but I'm not attached to that outcome either.
Interesting transition to the question. Charlie asked, how do you get into the zone to hit a lift under pressure? Do you have a routine?
I wouldn't say I have a routine. I literally posted, I think it was yesterday or the day before, like some of my favorite things that I do. And a lot of it is, I don't know. Yes, this post. A lot of it's like very basic, like anxiety tips that you learn in therapy, but I apply them to sport, because a lot of it is like calming down. It's not really like people like gotta get hyped, gotta get in the zone, whatever. For me, it's like being calm, being happy, not being like irritated, agitated, which is like, that's my like go-to, like my anxiety emotion is irritation. When I'm very like anxious, I get irritated, and that like it's hard to lift that way. Right. So I just try to calm all of that down. The more calm I am, the better I'm going to do in any given competition.
Cool. Got it. So trying to reduce the pressure within that specific moment is what's going to help you, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
I like it. Which is so interesting, right? Because most people are so methodical in their prep. And I've seen, like I've like been on the phone with you and Amy. And so like your numbers are extremely methodical in builds, right? Like not related to pain. But from like within the lift, in the moment kind of bit, it's just more by feel and trying to stay just relaxed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Speaking about, are you good? Are you good? Are we still chatting? I know it's been a long. Okay, cool.
Good.
I just like to talk. So I've seen you train now for a year-ish, and everything you do like faster than a CrossFitter. And I'm just so curious as to why, and not questioning that it's the wrong thing by any means. Obviously, you guys know a lot more than I do. I just try to pretend like I know more. People just think I do. It's fine. Carlos knows I don't. And so I mean, you'll do the amount of lifts that someone will take in 90 minutes in like 25. And so have you always trained like that, basically on a short clock, or, like higher reps within a set, et cetera? Is that something you've always done? Is that something you just do with Amy? What does that look like?
It's definitely an Amy era thing. My training volume significantly increased when I started with her.
Mm-hmm.
And I like, we did start off like right from the bat with on the minute work. for various reasons, like most being it helps me not think and not overthink, because you just lift, sit down, focus on breathing. You don't have time to sit there and like stew over things. You're just focused on not dying between. And it like that drastically helps me, who's an overthinker, specifically on snatches. But also like it's a way to get conditioned a little bit better. So I'm not doing triples or things like that at a lower percentage. I'm doing heavier singles and I'm getting that higher rep volume in, but it's at a higher percentage. And I specifically respond the best to that. And also just like for efficiency's sake, because I do have so much to get done. If I just leisurely take my time and do everything, I'm going to be in there for like 8 hours. It's going to take, especially when I had 2-a-days, like it's going to take all day.
Got it. Okay. So instead of like volume density work, you take what would be intensity work, like singles, higher percentage work, and you just put it on the clock instead of taking like doubles at 80 or triples at 80. You would rather do singles at 90 with a little less rest. Is that
So I mean, there's still definitely a time and place for like traditional lower intensity volume. Like I'll still do tons of complexes. I think very rarely will I just do like flat out like triples or whatever of the lifts. Like most of the time it's like a positional variation and there'll be 3 or 4 or whatever in there. I feel like that's a lot more of an Amy question, because it did start with her. And then once I started doing it, it's like, oh, I like this. I feel good on this. It works really well for me. Makes me confident in heavier lifts too. So I'm like, if I can do 90% on the 20th minute of on the minute, like I'm good to go.
Yeah, it's cool. It's different for sure. It's not the norm by any means. But obviously it works. That's cool. It's so strange. I just watch you. I'm like, are you fucking conditioning over here? What's happening? Is this because yeah.
If we ever circle back to that video we are going to show, I have to follow myself in competition.
Right.
A lot.
Yeah.
And that's a minute rest max. And that's at 95, 100+%. And if you're not used to that, which a lot of lifters are not, if someone eats their clock and they have to follow themselves, like good luck, especially on clean and jerks. But since I train like that all the time, like I almost prefer following myself versus having like 3 or 4 person weight, because I know what to expect.
Right. All right. Let's look at them. Talk us through it. So this is, what's on the bar? 100?
It's like 100, yeah, which would be opener. That one felt so good. I was nervous. I was very nervous. I think I had missed 100 to 102 in training every single time I tried it the 2 weeks prior.
And like you were hitting like 103?
No.
Or no, you just weren't like 100 and it was just like.
Yep. I'd get up to around like 98, 100 and like just was not working.
Thanks, Gus. We just recently had like our trolls enter the chat. Not mean trolls, just like.
I got a little sidetracked.
Were you reading it? I figured you were. Are you Henrietta? Do you have like a split personality?
Yes.
Trisha's pretty funny. I'm assuming someone else's podcast just ended, so because like a bunch of people that usually are in here commenting and talking shit have joined the chat. All right, so 103, second attempt.
Yeah, that one a little sketchy, but that was like the bare minimum that I would need to get the 237 that I needed, because I knew if I'd only made like my opener snatch, like I was in it. Like it would have been a really hard clean and jerk. So this one I really wanted to make, because then I could make the total at like the bare minimum on my opener clean and jerk, but I also had not snatched this much.
Can you tell Carlos to steady his hands a little bit? What are we doing here?
Oh no, he was more nervous than me. He told me he was so nervous.
Huh? What a guy.
What a guy.
Support. What are you saying to yourself right here?
Usually yes. I say yes like over and over. And usually like my little like pace, I'll visualize like finishing and like dropping the lift and like being excited. So I'm not thinking about like, okay, 1 million cues,
Smoked it.
That one felt pretty good. It felt sketchier than it looked. Like it felt like it was a little sneaky, but
Mm-hmm.
I'll
A little,
take it.
little sneaky.
A little sneaky.
Who's this guy? I don't know who that is. Is that is Amy? Amy was there? No.
No, Amy.
Okay.
So no one
Can't believe
ever.
her.
I know.
Unacceptable.
Well, no one ever competes here anymore, like at AO2s from our team. And so she's like, oh, I have to host a wedding at my house. This is a great weekend. No one's going to need to go. And then I needed to go.
Mm.
So she could not make it. But that's our friend Chris. We met him at the CrossFit Games, actually, because we trained at his gym.
Like this CrossFit, like this past one? like
a month
3 weeks ago? Oh, okay.
Yeah. But we trained at his gym. He was super nice, super accommodating. And we knew he was going to be here because it's in Texas. It was in Dallas.
Okay.
So we asked him and I didn't really need help. I just needed someone to run my clock between attempts because I counted for myself, like did all of that.
Right.
But he did a great job. He's amazing.
Cool. And how does it feel? So I've seen some of like your other behind the scenes stuff. So it's more just like on the platform. Like it's none of this.
Yeah.
Right. And so does this make you nervous? Is this different? Like what does it feel like? I know it's Carlos and it's like comfortable, but is it something that, you were at some point you were just like, maybe get the fuck out of my face at any point in time? I know you went,
No.
Obviously you lifted well, but talk me through that.
I'm pretty comfortable with cameras in like a competition setting.
Mm-hmm.
The only time that it bothers me is in like training, and mostly when they're being distracting to other people. Like especially like in a training hall or like a warm-up room like this where everyone is a weightlifter. Like you're not in a CrossFit gym where like people don't know the etiquette. Like everyone lifting here knows the weightlifting etiquette, and I don't know who's going to be sensitive to it or not. So like especially like some of the international competitions, there's like 20 different like media people, and they're like standing in front of people, walking in front of people, and I hate that feeling because then like other people are getting pissed, not necessarily at me, but I'm the one that's like causing all of this distraction.
Sure.
And I don't want to be a distraction to anyone when they're trying to focus. And that's like the biggest thing that I care about. Yeah. It never bothers me.
Just when you need to beat them. When you need to beat them, you're like, go stand in front of this person.
I don't even think I'd do that. I think I'd feel too bad.
Gus had a question. Do you suicide grip when you jump?
Hell no. Not a chance.
Someone does and just got popped in the head from it.
Yep. Get a big old dent in your forehead.
A big name. I think it was Guy. That looked rough. Crazy. Anyways. All right. Okay. So you opened at
28. 128.
Okay.
And this secured the 234 for the 10th spot that I needed.
Got it.
I wasn't really nervous for these. I was just tired.
Why were you?
I don't know. There's a big adrenaline dump after snatches, and then you have to turn around and start clean and jerking right away.
What's the heaviest you put on the bar in general? What's your heaviest clean and jerk to this point?
145. That was last year, actually.
Why is there some? I think it's the weight changers, right? Like on the side of the platform. Is that what she's talking about?
If that's them, yeah. Those are the weight guys.
That's what I would think.
Yeah.
John Young doesn't count. He's not acceptable. All right. What are you saying to yourself right here?
A little bit of relief because I knew I had the bare minimum. So not that it didn't matter what happened next, but like I was at least probably maybe going to Worlds.
Got it.
And then I think this one I was just like, okay, let's just make one more. Like if I just make the next one, like I'm good. I'm going to Worlds. So, and that and trying to breathe because following yourself on clean and jerks is a lot harder.
Did you follow yourself on every lift here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And when you follow yourself, don't you get 2 minutes?
You get 2 minutes, but you really go out there at 1 minute because you have to walk out there. You have to get chalk. You have to do whatever. So I always go out around a minute, maybe 55 seconds if I'm like following on all of them.
Yeah.
But it goes real quick.
Do you prefer to lift in kilograms or pounds? Do you even know freedom units?
No.
Do you just only know kilos?
There's a lot of math when I have to lift in pounds.
Right. Oh, this is like just anyone sitting on a wall. That's just a necessary thing. That's what weightlifters do.
Yeah,
Maddie's
we
the
sit.
only one that doesn't sit still when she trains. Everyone else, they do
Lounge
1/3 of the
it.
training and it takes 3 times as long.
Yep.
All right, 131, smoked it. You're super stoked.
Yeah, that one felt really good.
And what's the heaviest you lifted to this point? Have you done 140 yet?
No, 32. at the
Okay, so
Mako
134 is the highest you lifted.
I had
like,
tried
in
30,
the whole rehab process.
Yeah, I tried a 33 clean the week prior.
Mm-hmm.
It was real ugly. I missed the jerk and it like kind of hurt. So I was like,
Okay.
all right. But I wanted that fucking
Yeah.
hat.
Yeah.
That
You wanted
6x6 hat.
The 6x6 hat. Oh, is that how you get the hat? You go 6 for 6?
6.
Got it. Okay,
Yep.
I thought it was by winning, but you get 6 for 6. So
Yeah.
you could like get dead last and go 6 for 6 and get the hat?
In theory.
Huh. All right.
But it's harder
Not
to
you
go 6 for 6.
specifically.
Well, no, but it's harder to go 6 for 6 than it is to win, in my opinion. I guess that's not
Well, I
fair.
mean, in your situation for sure, right? Like
Yeah.
if you're following yourself, I mean, you're probably going to win. You're following yourself on both lifts.
Yeah.
Do you wear a belt when you snatch?
Yeah.
Yeah, both?
Yeah, I started it after I hurt my back, but then I realized I just liked it. So
Sure.
I kept it. But I don't put it on till like 90, 85-ish% on snatch.
Yeah. And then what about clean?
Maybe around 80%.
25%?
No.
All the time?
No.
I sleep with it. Killer. Perfect.
I almost missed that jerk, honestly.
Yeah, your front foot looked like it like almost slid.
Well, at the bottom of my dip, I like lost my core and my chest just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's 100% my bad. I heard the guy on the stage next to me miss, and I was like, oh no, he missed.
Oh
And
no.
oh,
Oh no, I don't want to miss.
Yeah.
Oh, right there. You
Right
can see
there.
it just like a little
Yeah.
bit.
Like my
Yeah,
elbows
yeah.
dip a little bit. But then I was like, no,
I can do
the
this.
hat, the hat.
The hat. And so this lift didn't matter for your actual ranking. You just wanted the hat at this point, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't have moved up another spot on the ranking unless I did a 243 total, which would have been a 137. And I mean, I told Amy, I was like, I don't quite feel ready for that
Sure.
yet. And I'm not going to risk anything for no good reason. So,
Gus asked, were you the only female there? Why were you following yourself? It was just because no one else was lifting, right? Like it's just how your weights lined up.
yeah. So like if you don't know weightlifting, the bar or your attempts go in order of the weight on the bar. So everyone else had already gone and finished before my opener started.
Cool. All right. You gotta see the hat now. It's been a big deal.
They gave it to me right away too.
Right away. Nice. Do you still have it? Why didn't
Oh,
you put it
yeah.
on in the back? Oh, you're not at your house.
No.
You gotta put just wear it to the gym now.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Woo. Perfect.
Yeah. Super
Look at that.
fun.
Awesome. Good stuff. Whoa. It is a pretty high hat. I agree.
Well, it's because I had my bun.
Yeah, it's good. It's just like sitting on top. Cool. Awesome. Okay, so what's next?
Worlds in December. I might do a local tune-up at some point if there's one close.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
And at Worlds, what are your what's the goal? Is the goal a gold and to win?
Yes, with an asterisk though, because the Olympic year is always weird for Worlds, because you don't know who's going to go. It could be a dead year. It could be like people in weird weight classes. Like you just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to go in with because I've never won. I've gotten silver 5 times. I've never won. I would love to win. And that's why I kind of also don't care. I could go 76 or 81. So I'll kind of keep an eye on who's where when the time
Mm-hmm.
comes to, and maybe move up as needed. But also if there's some crazy people in my weight class, I just want to go have a good day. I don't,
Sure.
if that doesn't win, fine. I would love a medal of any color. I would love to win, but a good day.
Got it. Yeah, there's no such thing as an asterisk, right? It's just the year. It is what it is.
Yeah.
No one looks back and it's like, oh, that Worlds was on an Olympic year. Only
Lifters do.
lifters do. Well,
We know who won on the dead years.
Yeah, that's all right. Just show them how many medals you have. Okay, so Worlds is coming up. Where's Worlds?
Bahrain.
Bahrain. That's cool. And is your video crew coming with you?
No,
Uh-huh.
I wish he was, but he'll be home. It's the first year that I'm self-funded. Usually they'll at least pay for like our travel there.
Who will?
USAW.
USAW. Okay.
Yeah, so they have a stipend program that previously was based on like ranking, ability to medal, whatever. They did an overhaul of it this year and cut everyone but the Olympians, basically. And even the Olympians took a big cut. So I have zero funding from them as of now in terms of monthly and like for competition. So it's going to be a pricey trip. So only one of us can go.
USAW is as big as it's ever been, right? Currently.
Mm-hmm.
With the most members they've ever had, I would assume, is probably right now.
Absolutely.
And they just who's getting the money?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm getting less funding than I was 10 years ago, which doesn't make any sense.
That's wild. When there was only like 7 weightlifters.
That's what I'm saying.
10 years ago.
At least I was getting paid to my way to events. Like, sure, the monthly stipends might have been lower then, but like you were not having to pay thousands of dollars out of pocket to travel to Bahrain.
Right.
I don't even know where that is.
Perfect. Thanks, Gus. Gus sent you $2.
Thanks,
what a guy.
guys.
What a guy.
It's a big argument right now, and I've been warned to watch what I say, but I don't care.
All right, perfect. What do you think? If you've been warned and you don't care, what do you think?
I just don't understand it. Like I don't know enough to have like a firm opinion of like this is what you need to be doing.
Right.
But like you're charging us quadruple what you were for national events
to be members, right? And then I assume
more to be members. There's more national events every year. Like it used to be when I started, it was $50 to register. Now it's like $175, or if you're late, like $350, and that's like thousands of people. And it's like there's so many more members than there were. Like I don't understand how at least the top 10, your top 10 athletes in the whole sport, you're not funding them.
Not even in the weight class, just top 10 overall.
No.
Right. Yeah.
And it can only be the top 2 per weight class. Like you can't even have like a third in the weight class. So 10 people, because they usually fund seniors, juniors to some extent, and youth to some extent. And I don't think they're funding youth and junior like at all. And then seniors are only funding the 5 Olympians, who most of them aren't even going to Worlds. So it's like it doesn't make sense.
Sure.
I don't like it.
Did you start one? I think didn't you start one? A GoFundMe for the trip?
We are doing a seminar, Amy and I.
Seminar. Okay, sick.
There is a donation link on the registration for that I've been posting, but I feel a little icky about GoFundMes.
Okay.
I like to work for my money.
Yeah, for sure. Well, send me all the stuff for it, and we'll make sure to push it out on this if anyone wants to. Where's the seminar going to be?
It's in Ohio. It's at our friend's gym. We've done a few there, so that's why we picked there. We do like a little seminar, a little dinner, a little auction. It's fun.
Sure. An auction?
A silent auction.
Yeah. Oh, all right. I don't know what was happening. Who are we auctioning off? Why don't you do one at Mako? Duke. Shh.
I might.
It should be a smaller one.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. They release next year's funding procedures by the end of this year. So then we'll know if it's like going to be a regular thing.
Right.
If like I'm going to have to, because I mean, it's easily like $4,000 to $5,000 to go. So if I have to do that 6 times a year, then yes, I will be doing a lot more of these.
Does it annoy you when people yell up?
No.
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 What are your weightlifting no-nos from like a coaching standpoint? Like, or like your most hated cues?
I hate reach. When people say reach, it's why you're not reaching like this. Like, ew,
I think reach is like the front foot, right?
Sometimes.
Isn't that why they say reach?
Not in my.
I don't think I've ever said reach like up. I might say punch.
That's
you know
fine.
what I mean? And
punch
but I'll say reach for like the foot, like someone that's got a short step.
That makes sense.
You know what I mean?
Though. People will say it in a snatch, and they're like, reach. I'm like, we're not reaching for any. Where are you going?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Up
what about like the tennis yell? What about like the tennis yell?
Doesn't bother me.
No? Do you do it? You do it sometimes.
Like before I lift?
Yeah.
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 I do.
Receive the bar.
I like that when you use it instead of catch the bar, because you're not catching anything. You're
Yeah,
not
I actually
throwing
don't
it and
like.
dropping it.
I don't like receive or catch. I like push into it. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
like very. I feel like receive and catch are passive, and it's
Yeah.
just such not a passive pattern, right?
That's
and
fair.
like even for you, it's you have such like a vertical bar path, right? And like very much a pull and punch. Like there's no turnover, right? Like
Yeah.
you have no turnover, right? And I try to teach everyone here that it's not a turnover, right? And like you see it on some people and it's fine, but like the goal is to keep it like pull and like punch and push
Yeah.
through the bar, through the ceiling. And so I hate like, like turn your elbows over. I'm like, I hate that. I'm like, that just like teaches like a loop.
Yeah. I only use this one if someone's like, oh, when I caught this clean this way. I'm like, no, when you received the bar, I would have never be like, receive it, go receive it. Like, no shit.
All right. How many athletes you coach, right? Tell me about your coaching a little bit. We're 2
so
hours. Are you still, you're still good? I mean, we'll probably
as long as
finish
you're
up.
good.
Cool. Bennett's still sleeping. So if Bennett's sleeping, we're
Amen.
hanging on. Oh, here, while we're in like an interim period, I just want to quickly thank my sponsors. Third Z is the best sleep supplement on the market. If you don't use it, you should. I don't know if you're sponsored by someone else. If you are, shame on them. And shame on you. No, Third Z is a non-melatonin based sleep supplement, collagen, protein. And yeah, it's what gets me through my 6 hours on average every night, 5 most of the time. Last night I was up with Bennett. He threw up at like 10. And so we had to do laundry till like midnight. And so I was up early and I feel good. I take it every day. And so if you guys are interested in taking Third Z, scan that QR code for 15% off. All right. You coach. Tell me about your coaching.
I do. I've always coached a little bit. It's kind of dwindled now intentionally. I guess I like fired the few lifters that I had. Mostly because I love in person. Like remote coaching, I'm good at, I guess, but I don't enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And you don't make money from coaching a few people here and there. I was doing it as more of like a passion project, I guess, or I would take mm-hmm. people on case by case basis. Like, oh, my coach, like they were terrible to me. Like I need help, whatever. It was usually people I had met at seminars or people that I had been in the gym with.
Sure.
But it started getting harder and harder because I couldn't go to events. Like I just couldn't afford to fly myself to an event for one person or two people.
Right. Yeah.
And that's always like kind of a point of friction with athletes because they want their coach there. Mm-hmm. So the last like round of athletes that I had, I did encourage them to find someone that like meets all their needs. And I just wasn't doing it. Mm-hmm. We had a great relationship. We still do. And right now the only I guess person I work with is a CrossFitter. We're just in a little strength cycle in the off season. But prior to that, I worked with pretty much exclusively youth athletes. I did really enjoy coaching kids. Like the middle teen years is like mm-hmm. my favorite.
God, you're a special person. I feel like they respond to like a female coach differently than like a male coach in general. I've done like the youth thing and it's like trying to coach like a high level male in some capacity. And they're like, I don't want to listen to you. And I'm like,
yeah, I mean, I've experienced that on both male and female. Like there's a time and it's usually around like 17 where they know more than you and they're going to grass is greener you. And that's when I say, see ya, good luck, right. Have fun.
Yeah. Interesting. Here, let's see. Jen said, are you going to Amy's ladies trip in New Orleans?
Probably. I usually go to all the New Orleans ones because they're close.
Is that like a training camp thing?
Yeah, we do. That specific one is a women's only training camp. Okay. And it's like a Thursday to Sunday, like lifting. We do activities. We do like dinners. New Orleans is fun. Yeah, well, like last time we made voodoo dolls because it was New Orleans. And like we do like fun like group activities.
Cool. Sweet. I like it. All right, what else is coming up? So what's the seminar in Ohio? Someone asked that. What's it on? Is it just like a 2-day weightlifting seminar?
It's a one day, November 9th in Cleveland, Ohio. The gym is CFC weightlifting. We're going to do a whole day of lifting, and then we have like, we're going to bring like some exclusive like posters, merch, things like that you can't buy elsewhere. And we're going to have like a little personal dinner. We like rented out a room.
Cool.
So it'll be fun.
Cool. Sweet. What's on the silent auction? Anything good? Signed belts.
Probably some things that we aren't allowed to sell on the internet that have to do with Team USA, but that's all I'll say.
Cool. Perfect. Like a signed rain can or something like that.
Maybe.
Cool. Awesome. All right. I think that's it. I think that was good. 2 hours, pretty long time.
A solid 2 hours of chatting.
Yeah, I think it was good. It was cool. All right. Last bit. Words of encouragement for people that struggle with, like, I don't know, maybe like some performance anxiety, or even just like specifically lifting. Something to close on.
I feel like I could speak to the anxiety part more than the lifting part, honestly, because I feel like lifting, there's so many things that like could be the problem. I guess with performance anxiety, one of my favorite things is just remember like the fun parts, because a lot of the stress comes from you constantly playing that worst case scenario of like, this could happen, that could happen, this person will think that, all of those negative things. But if you think about like, oh, well, remember when I hit that PR and I was so excited and it was so fun and it felt so good, and you just like remind yourself of all of those things and play those in your head as visuals, instead of like, I know like me, my anxiety likes to like show the bar like falling on my head. And I'm like, that's literally never happened. Why is it like bringing up all of these things? So just replace those pictures with pictures of fun and joy and happy. And it'll be a lot more enjoyable of an experience. You can do all those things nervous and anxious and scared, and you'll be just fine. Awesome.
Cool. Well, hey, thanks so much. It was, this was great. I'm super stoked that you popped on to do this, and hopefully we'll have another one maybe after, when's Worlds?
December.
So maybe we'll plan for another one after that.
Sounds good to me.
Talk about what's next. Sweet. Tell Carlos next time to keep his dogs quiet.
We'll do our best.
Anyways. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining everyone in the chat. Thanks for hanging on. And Mattie, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.